Salutations, everyone. Welcome back to Victoria 3. I'm Lord Forwind, and here I am with a very requested guide on Prussia. So, Prussia, everybody loves Prussia, right? They're all about war. If you're a person in game that loves conquering things, Prussia is usually your nation, especially if you play EU4. That's not necessarily the case in Victoria 3. Remember, it's not necessarily a war game, so while Prussia is quite powerful at the start of the game, you're not going to be needing to conquer as much and fight as much as you would think to unite Germany. So, anyhow, this video should have chapters and stuff below, so feel free to click on what you liked to jump forward to. And if you did enjoy the video and all of that, please do like, leave a comment, subscribe, check out my Discord, link in the description, or on my YouTube page. And thank you guys all for watching. So let's get into it. Okay, Prussia. Prussia at the start of the game is a rising great power. You're fifth in the world. The reality is Prussia is much stronger than they appear at this point in time. Prussia is expanding and fighting their way into Western Germany. They fight wars with France and other stuff during this time period, leading to the unification of Germany under Prussian control, leading to, of course, the World War I, and then later on, the United Country will trigger World War II. This coincides with the decline of Austria and the decline of Russia in the area as well. Prussia has quite a few unique things going on. The big one here is Prussia starts as the leader of the Northern German Confederation type stuff. Basically, if we go to the market page, everybody inside the Prussian market, which is mostly the German, with the exception of Hanover over here, because they're under the British, are part of this German Confederation under your control. You have two methods to unifying Germany. One, you can fight wars and gain control that way. Or two, and this is the more peaceful way, which I've done a couple times, you have to, this journal entry will activate, you basically get high relations with the variety of the German nations here, as well as researching nationalism and then pan-nationalism for the southern Germans. And there's a chance they will go, hey, we'd like to join your country. No war needed, so long as they're part of your customs union. So this is why the custom union is important, because right at the beginning, northern Germany here, Hanover, as well as some of the Holstein up here, are under the control of foreign powers, British and the Danes. If they leave, which Hanover will, and you can move them into your customs union, the events and stuff will apply to them. Same thing all the way up here. You may need a war against either the Danes or anyone else who might interfere in Hamburg in this area. But overall, the solution is to basically improve relations with the minor German states. These southern ones here will not be confederatable until you get pan-nationalism, but everyone else, it's nationalism. It happens pretty slowly for a while, and then it seems to happen really fast all at once. I don't know if that's encoded into the game or not. It took like one of my games like 50, 60 years to get Bavaria to join me, which was quite frustrating. Now, that is pretty much the biggest unique mechanic Prussia has, but there is one other one, and most people forget it. There is Germany here. So once you complete all this, you have to go to this culture page, nation formation, Germany. However, Germany does have another option here, which is they can launch a unification play. So what that means is, try to get here, allows countries to become unification candidates that gives them access to the unification diplomatic play, sets the war goals to annex all the required states and countries. Okay. The minor ones do not allow it. This is basically if a large nation collapses, a way to create it again. In this case, the creation of Germany relies on that. So currently there are no unification candidates, which you will have to build up and get more powerful to be part of this. Your major rival is going to be Austria. As you will see, the people here, there's a lot of split states. The downside of this is it tends to require a large war. Assuming Austria doesn't back down, but if they do, it's a way to form Germany rather quickly. meaning you can also do it through warfare, conquer people, then launch a unification play. And basically, the only big thing you need from Austria to form some of Germany is basically Bohemia, and I think Moravia is independent now. So basically, you just need that, and then you can form modern Germany. Obviously, Eastern Prussia and stuff is now part of Poland rather than modern day Germany, but that's that. In terms of their starting situation, Prussia starts with a rather large military. It's not on par with their major neighbors, Russia, Austria, and France. However, and this is very important, if you go to the military tree, the Prussians start with skirmish infantry, making them probably the strongest army in terms of actual strength in the game. They don't actually have as many troops, which puts them at a disadvantage, but their army is stronger, meaning that early on they can win wars against numerically superior opponents. But if they want to keep doing that, you do have to spend more time researching military tech than you would expect. On the other hand, the Prussians also start with some decent society, and they have a very highly educated populace at the start of the game, meaning if you want to, investing in universities can be very powerful as this faction and country, because their base value of innovation is so high. You can max that out and become the tech leader of the world, easily passing Great Britain, who starts ahead of you. Now, outside of that, you do not have the world's greatest economy. You have the world's 8th largest economy, but you're the 5th ranked great power. Thankfully, Prussia has some of the best lands in the game, specifically for mining. They have access to the Upper Silesia coalfield. A very legitimate strategy is Prussia is to just build this basically almost to maximum and supply the entire world's coal supply. Outside of that, they have some natural harbors. They don't have a lot of other natural modifications. They do have the Ruhr coalfield as well, which is not as big, but also gives a bonus. Build it in Silesia. It's not like you can deplete resources in this game, which is a little bit odd. So there's really no reason to build it over here unless you want to give them jobs. It does apply to both provinces as well. So together they have more, but the reality is one province is worth way more than two. You have no other particular advantages other than the fact that you have a powerful military with some decent industry at the beginning. In terms of your neighbors, and this is an important fact, Austria and you start as rivals. You can end the rivalry, but considering you want to conquer Bohemia, Moravia, and those various provinces as part of your conquest of Germany, it might not be the best idea to be friends with Austria. Russia, on the other hand, is rather friendly to you, and if you want to avoid Russia intervening to help Austria, it's usually a good idea to improve relations with them, France, and Great Britain. To the north, there is Sweden, which tends to unify currently into Scandinavia. I suspect they will change that as they improve the game to make it slightly less likely, because it didn't actually happen. But they prove to be a nice ally if you can expand, and many times you can in fact get them as part of your custom union, which gives you a new market to sell to. Plus it gives you access to some of the Swedish woods that they tend to build half decent amount of logging camps up there. But the reality is, improving the relations with these people is not the biggest priority. It's to improve it with the minor nations. But if you can get a defensive pact with someone like Great Britain, France, or even Russia, or an alliance with Russia, you pretty much have no military threats in the game. On land, while you don't have any particular bonuses towards fighting, you do have the stronger army at the beginning. You can, in fact, conquer these areas, but it's usually worth it doing it peacefully. Fighting a war with Austria and maybe Hanover and Denmark really should be your priorities. Then you can kind of go nuts. The Netherlands falls really easily if you want to go for them. Belgium's, honestly, militarily a bit of a joke. And then France can also be conquered as well, forming a supersized Germany. But let's get into actually playing them. So the first thing to note is the difference between North German and South German. So the border line is here. Any nation below this will not join you to pan-nationalism, so it's pretty much pointless to improve relations with them except to keep them in your custom union, which they tend to stay in anyway. In terms of who to focus in Northern Germany, the prizes are, first off, you want to get Hesse Castle here to unite your two halves of Prussia. It's worth getting that just over and done with. Afterwards, trying to get the larger ones here, Hesse, Saxony, Mecklenburg, are probably going to be your most useful ones. Mecklenburg I particularly like getting because it gives you access to Lubeck here, who's one of your people in your union, but it also gives you access to Holstein, which of course is under the control of Denmark and stuff, meaning if you want invading these guys, it becomes possible. Prior to that, you have to do a naval invasion, which is just not worth the effort. Otherwise, at that point, you can just go through and get all these minor small states, simply go to them and improve relations, and then pretty much you could just right click, by the way, just to improve relations. You want to be improving relations with as many people as you can, basically, so use up all of your diplomatic power unless you're planning on actually fighting people. And that's pretty much the diplomatic situation play for Prussia. You can play them extremely passively if you want, or you can try and be aggressive against Austria early on and take Bohemia and Moravia before they expect it. I've tried that strategy. It worked. It did cost me a lot of money, which early on probably wasn't worth it. If you're going to attack them early on, make sure that you try and get field works as well as shell gun and maybe even rifling here. Field works is a big one because it gives a defense bonus, which is hard to come by. With field works and skirmish infantry, assuming you can afford to fully upkeep your military, including, if you need to, your conscripted troops, you should be able to overwhelm Austria on their own in a war and take a couple provinces. Once you do, Austria will decline rapidly. Bohemia is very easily integratable, along with Moravia here, to just give you a nice, rounded out, fat Prussia. And your first technology, if you're not going to go to war, instead of field work, you want to get nationalism. You want to get nationalism pretty early on because that allows you to start confederating the Northern Germans. Pan-nationalism takes quite a bit longer to get to, but it might even be worth getting to it sooner rather than researching the tech on each level before you move down, just so that you can then get a chance to get nations like Bavaria and stuff. Be aware as you confederate, or I'll call it confederate, take over the other nations, their production techniques are not ideal. Many of them will be behind, some of which, including Bavaria seems to be the biggest culprit in the game right now, will be subsidized. So just be aware that you may have to keep an eye on the subsidies, including turning them off or on. Otherwise, Prussia is reasonably in good economic shape. Be aware that you do not want to put on craftsman sewing here because you don't really have access to silk. Unless you're willing to start importing silk, it will cost you more money than it's worth. But almost every other upgrade production-wise is worth doing for Prussia. The urban center here, you can do gas streetlights at the beginning, but if you do this, you're going to want to definitely be developing your coal mine in Silesia as fast as possible, basically. And for some reason, your government admin methods are diversified, so standardize them all to help you with your income, reform your academia to free stuff. It's better to have bureaucrats than everyone else. And also, for some reason, your university is not doing the best production method, so definitely switch that. And that should refine your starting stuff to improve. In terms of building up your industry as Prussia, you're going to want to focus on the big three industries: coal, iron, and tools. Thankfully, you already have a start on some of those, and you have the best pretty much the best coal mines in the game here in Silesia. So it's worth building this up. There's really no reason to build it not to build it as high as you need it. Just be aware that at some point you may run out of peasants in it. You also have these great iron mines here, so between the two, you can basically make your entire mining industry come out of this one province. Just be aware that if you fight Austria and they take it over in the war, it can cause quite a lot of pain and suffering to your economy. The other one to look for is your tools industry, and if I remember, there was something weird about the Prussian tools. So let me see if I can find it. So the Prussian tool workshop is in the Rhineland. It's okay to leave it in the Rhineland. I tend to find, and this is, I don't know if it's just me, but this Rhineland area tends to be extraordinarily rebellious. I don't know why. Maybe it just is that way in real life, but it might even be worth considering building another tool workshop back over here in like Posen or something, where you're more likely to have less turmoil. Turmoil in a state with tools can absolutely devastate your economy because it reduces output and stuff. So if you do it in Posen, then your big economy comes out of Silesia, Brandenburg, and Posen. Brandenburg has a lot of population and it will grow larger and larger. So it's quite possible to run most of your industry out of here, making sure to build up paper mills. And once you start doing paper mills, make sure you go and you find your sulfur mines and build them up as well. Another big benefit of playing Prussia is the fact that you already start with the decent arms industry as well as a big army, making it quite productive to constantly maintain upgrading your army. Be aware that mostly it requires iron. Obviously, it will require more resources as you expand further down this tree, including steel, which you've already got the beginnings of over here. Right now, it's not making any money, but it will later on. The other thing you really need for producing high-level weapons is wood. So make sure to build up your logging camps. Over here is a decent spot in East Prussia since it's got no other major resources. Maxing out the lumber camps here gives this population something to do. Also, don't neglect your livestock ranches early on. The fertilizer is quite useful until you start getting chemical plants going. So really, as Prussia, focus on iron, coal, and tools, then add in steel and probably sulfur around the same time, and then finally get chemical plant going with explosives. I liked sticking here in Anhalt because it only has furniture, and outside of that, you're going to be building a lot of furniture. Early on, furniture is extraordinarily profitable along with paper mills. As you expand, though, be aware that the states you take over will not necessarily be incorporated. Some already are incorporated, some are not. You're going to want a large government complex. Brandenburg is a great place. Sadly, there is no Brandenburg Gate that I am aware of in this game. And outside of that, you really don't have any other unique stuff as Prussia until you form Germany and beat up Austria. In terms of technology, I've already mentioned that going for nationalism is good as well as fieldworks if you're going to fight. Outside of that, Prussia is one of the few countries of the game that I would really push for your education. Since you've already got an educated populace, going further into education is actually not a bad strategy. Therefore, you can build more universities. But the big prize over here is to get access to the mining technologies and then sell coal and steel and iron to the entire world. You can make a lot of money doing it. So nitroglycerin, dynamite are key. You already start with atmospheric engine. Rotary valve is really good, as well as steam donkey. Be aware that if you research a lower line of tech before you finish off each tier here, it is more expensive, making it actually beneficial to race through all of them. In terms of technology spread, let it spread through most of the military and the other society techs you don't need. In terms of focusing your universities, you can do it in Brandenburg itself. West Prussia, though, here might be worth considering doing as well. It doesn't have a ton of natural resources outside of sulfur mining, and it has a decent sized population, meaning it can be a pretty good port area, but also a very good university town. The issue with over-centralizing in Berlin is if you put too many industries in one province, you'll exceed the infrastructure rather quickly, and you'll have a huge population there. Spreading it out, each state should focus in one, maybe two technologies. So pausing here is your food industry section. These textiles here, you've got textiles other places, so just kind of ignore that. This one here has no industry, making it perfect for any of the high-level stuff. Power plants, munitions, chemicals, universities. Just focus one in each. Prussia's got a decent population. As you expand, you'll get more. The downside is as you expand, you'll have to deal with everyone else's buildings that they may have built up, which usually aren't that great, but is a nice little touch. Making sure to get auto production. At the start, you're going to want to throw down probably at least one construction sector, probably not more, making sure, of course, all your construction's on iron frame. Once you throw down another one, you're going to fall further into debt. That's because of the construction costs. So focus on building up iron mines and tooling workshops. And that should help control the cost, along with logging camps in East Prussia will help as well. Don't forget to maintain your military. Yes, you've got great barracks to begin with, but you're a professional army, so you can build this even higher. In terms of your laws, not much has to change for Prussia to do well. You could honestly sit where you are for most of the game and do fine. The only changes I might make would be to shift to a dedicated police force rather than a local to weaken the Junkers. You've got to be a little bit careful with tolerating too many cultures. It's very tempting to go multicultural and then not remember to put on migration controls. You will get overwhelmed if your standard of living is too high. Migration controls in Germany are actually one of the few countries I feel the need to put migration controls on. But other than that, most of your stuff is already in great shape. You've no slavery, no serfdom. Interventionism is solid. Per capita, at some point you'll want to shift it to proportional and maybe even graduated. Home affairs, National Guard is really nice. If you're worried about political issues, secret police can be very powerful as well. I would not put on a social security. It's kind of broken in the game right now. Appointed bureaucrats is fine. If you feel that your institutions are getting too high, swapping to elected can be very handy. Just because you already have access to institutions, improving them further is nice. At the start, I would almost definitely up the education one. There's really no downside to doing because you have excess bureaucracy, and start reforming towards a dedicated police force. Your government is nicely balanced. This guy as a king is pretty decent. He's going to keep the officers and the nobility and the military powerful for a while, so there's no reason not to embrace them and keep them happy. The intelligentsia will add some nice ability to reform, which honestly you don't really need. You've got public schools. The healthcare system can be powerful if you get it, but you don't hurt for population anyway. And anyway, that's pretty much it as Prussia. The strategy is to improve relations and annex them. If you do, you will end up with a country that looks pretty similar to this, all with pretty much out fighting any wars with anybody. The only thing I haven't done is invaded Austria, and it's 1902. We're number one great power by a decent margin. Our GDP is high. The reason we're losing money right now is because we have poor laws on. I really should be getting rid of some of those, as well as restricting the amount of migration. We had a bit of a migration crisis, but I created this Germany here without a single war. This is a non-military Germany. We have not fought a war. We've expanded our battalions in preparation of invading Austria, But honestly, we haven't needed to. Up here, Scandinavia formed, and they still control Hamburg here, meaning that it wasn't possible for us to pull them into our country or our customs union. It's just the way it worked out. Outside of that, obviously, if you're doing the homogeny or hegemony stuff, you've got these. I didn't bother to do it. It doesn't give you any great benefit, but you can easily conquer and fight stuff. We did manage to get the Suez Canal here, meaning we could go on to conquer Egypt if we wanted to. But the reality is, if all you're going for is forming Germany, the only war you really need is Austria, maybe Scandinavia. And it's really easy. Germany is extraordinarily wealthy. I didn't even build up these coal mines as much as I should have, or iron mines, but we have everything. We produce power. Obviously, we're getting decent production. This was not an optimized run. It was to see, just try out some strategies, but it was really easy. Honestly, Prussia, outside of France, is probably one of the easiest countries to play right now in the game. Hopefully they change it. Hopefully they add some more war incentives, like go invade France. The Prusso-Franco War was a big thing where the Prussians sacked Paris and stuff, as well as more events dealing with Germany or Prussia and Austria's rivalry. And there should honestly be some tensions between Russia and Germany in the future over the Polish lands. If you're going to expand outside of Germany and Austria, invading Russia is a very viable thing. Even though they do eventually reform their military, we could effortlessly crush them in a war and seize a lot of this land, which we could integrate with ease. So anyway, that's Prussia. Surprisingly, for a militarized nation, right now you can do the unification almost entirely peacefully. You'll have an event to promote Bismarck and stuff. Promote Bismarck. He makes it easier to integrate stuff. And honestly, have fun. Enjoy having basically 2 rulers in 100+ years. And form Germany. It's nice, fun. Be powerhouse. Conquer Austria. If you want, you can even invade the Ottomans. Getting the Suez Canal and expanding here is fun. Also, colonizing as Prussia is entirely viable. If early game you swap to colonizing, getting the rubber in Central Africa is extraordinarily easy to do. Since you don't need to fight in Europe, you want to fight in Africa. You easily can conquer most of these areas. In this case, Great Britain and France were my main opponents. It's really easy to invade and conquer this and become huge. There is an achievement for Germany, which I haven't bothered to finish. Form Germany and own at least 10 states in Africa. At some point, I'll have to invade like Portugal and France here to pick up these last ones. But I think I have 9 integrated or something. And that's basically it is Germany. You form Germany, you conquer parts of Africa, and there's the Prussian achievements. Anyway, sorry this wasn't more in depth, but there's really not that much here as Prussia yet. When they update this, because they have to update Prussia, it's one of the main powers of this time period, I will revise this guide, and hopefully it will become more interesting. In the meantime, enjoy all the coal. And see you guys all in another video, Let's Play or something else. Like, subscribe, comment, check out the Discord. Bye for now.